Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, disturbing books. I want to talk to you about The Melting by Lize Spit. So this is one of the books I've read for my ongoing Disturbing Books project, where I've been reading books that have been recommended to me by viewers, so books that disturbed them. And it's a really interesting thing to do because different people find different things disturbing. And a number of the books I've read, I haven't really found that disturbing at all. This one was definitely disturbing. This I found to be a very troubling book, and certainly one that has lingered with me since I finished it. So this was originally published in 2016 in Belgium, originally written in Dutch, and was a runaway success. So I think it won at least one literary award over there, and was a very, very successful book. And the first book that Lize Spit had written, so doubly impressive because of that. It got picked up and it's been translated into English. So the English translation is by a translator called Kristen German, and that came out I think in 2021. And I think it's caused a bit of a splash over here as well. And it's not hard to see why. It's a well-written book, but it's also a book that's got that hook of being like genuinely shocking. And I think we as humans are often drawn to things like that. We are drawn to challenge ourselves to see how much we can take. And I think that's one of the reasons why people enjoy reading disturbing books. But you do see it in kind of literary circles as well. This is a book that, it's a well-written book, but I strongly suspect that if it wasn't as shocking as it is, it wouldn't have got like the word of mouth publicity that it has got that's made it a success. We are, as I say, we're drawn to things like that, and even people who consider themselves to be reading books for their literary value will still be drawn to that shocking, darker stuff. So the main part of this book is set in 2002, and there's a wonderful kind of nostalgia to that. If you're someone who lived through that time and remembers it, there's lots of references to like the early days of the internet, to like old versions of Windows, people playing Minesweeper and things like that. So that part of it was kind of almost cozy in a way for me. You also get the main character Eva, her perspective as an adult, so kind of present day perspective, looking back at the events of the book that happened in 2002. So that gave an interesting additional lens, I think, to the events of the book. What it's essentially about, though, is Eva and two of her friends who are all the same age, so they're the only children born in the small town that they live in the year that they were born, and who are now kind of on the verge of adolescence, so they're kind of 12, 13, 14, that kind of age. And they play this game with the other kids in the town where they've got this riddle, and they go around the town asking children if they can answer this riddle. And if the kid can't answer the riddle, and the vast majority can't, then they have to pay a forfeit. And the forfeits are invariably cruel, and at times sexual as well. And they gradually, kind of build in their intensity through the course of the book. So it's a book that you can just feel that momentum growing and growing and growing until a scene near the end of the book, which is genuinely one of the most shocking and disturbing things I've ever read. It goes far beyond what I've read in many, many horror novels. This is by no means a horror novel, but this is a genuinely horrifying scene, and that you really feel that momentum. You know that it's building to something, and when it happens, it feels at once very natural. It does feel like a natural progression, but it also feels utterly shocking. One of the things, though, that's really interesting about this book is the way it mashes those two things together. So I've talked about that kind of almost cosy nostalgia, and the shocking nature of the events, some of the events in the book. But there's a lot of just everyday stuff in this book. There's a lot of stuff about like Eva and her family, having supper, going for walks and things like that. There's a real coziness to a lot of the book that means that when the disturbing stuff happens, it's even more shocking. That juxtaposition is very, very effective. And it reminded me a bit of the Dutch movie The Vanishing. So I hadn't seen the American remake, but I saw the original Dutch version ages ago, and that's about a serial killer who's kidnapped a young woman. but you see scenes of his everyday life with his family as well. And in particular, I remember there's a gesture that he makes, and you've seen him make this with this woman that he's kidnapped, and then you see him make it in the context of his like everyday family life. And that tiny movement, that tiny gesture, has enormous power because it kind of combines the two elements of his life in a single, kind of single frame of cinema. You see both the disturbing side of his nature and the everyday side of his nature. And I think that's one of the things that this book does brilliantly, and which is really important, is that people who are monsters, and some of the things that the kids do in this book are monstrous. People who are monsters also have regular lives. They're not monsters 24/7, which is a really difficult thing to process, and a strange thing to think about, and a chilling thing to think about, because it means that the person you walk by on the street, the person you work with, whatever, who may be totally normal, may also be doing horrific things. And that in itself is a very, very disturbing thought, and it's a theme that this book captures very, very well. So this is a book that in some ways is hard to recommend, partly because it is so shocking, it is so disturbing at times, but also because long portions of the book are not shocking at all. And I think that maybe people who are fans, for want of a better word, of disturbing fiction may find those bits a bit slow, whereas people who enjoy those bits may find the shocking bits too much. But I did think it was the combination of the two that really made this as effective as it was. So I definitely think it's worth checking out if you think you've got the stomach for it. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. Do let me know in the comments if you've read The Melting and what you thought of it. And as always, thanks very much for watching. I hope you're safe and well out there. I hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.